How's it going, guys? I'm Connor from Running Warehouse, and I'm here with Elliott Heath, product manager at Nike. And today we're going to be taking a deep dive into one of the most highly anticipated shoes of 2022. We've got the Nike Streakfly. Now, Elliott, I've been seeing this shoe on the feet of pro athletes for almost a year now, little glimpses, and I've heard a lot of people speculate, what is this shoe? What's the name? Now we finally have the Nike Streakfly here in 2022. Can you tell us what was the inspiration behind this shoe and how long has it been in the works?
Yeah, thanks, Connor. It's exciting to finally see it getting out into the world. Athletes starting to benefit from it in all sorts of different distances. We started on the Streakfly really with an idea 2.5, 3 years ago in 2019, as we started to learn more and more about how athletes were using basically new generation of shoes like the Vaporfly, some of these successes that we saw from the Vaporfly. Athletes starting to take it, not just from the marathon and half marathon, but down into shorter distances. Also, as they took it into their training for non-marathon athletes, track athletes, really looking for the balance and how they filled out their quiver of different shoes for track racing, track training, and shorter distance road racing. So we started there 2.5, 3 years ago, and really have been on a journey with athletes across our whole spectrum of not only Nike athletes, but local, national, and athletes around the world testing this kind of shoe.
And the first thing I want to talk about is potentially the naming, because everyone is familiar now with the Vaporfly and the Alphafly. We've also had shoes in the past from Nike like the Streak, and now even more recently some lower profile shoes like the Dragonfly. Can you tell us about how this shoe kind of got that Streakfly designation?
Yeah, as you hit on there, the fly nomenclature really in our line has really come to stand for racing or faster up tempo. And that's really, it takes, half of its lineage from that side of our line. But then also we understand the DNA of the Streak and the rich history there that athletes have come to expect for something like the Streak, something like a lower profile shoe, something that they feel connected to the ground and really can be quite versatile in. So we took the DNA, the history of the Streak, and combined that with our new age fly technology, and that's where you end up with the Streakfly.
So a lot to talk about with this shoe, and I think with super shoes in general, the midsole has been probably one of the biggest and most important parts of the shoe. It's really what creates that performance benefits, those highly efficient design. And now with the Streakfly, again, we've got that little bit lower profile design. Can you tell us about the compound we see in this shoe and what's going to set it apart from some of the other kind of racing shoes in the Nike lineup?
Yeah, if we look at really any of the racing shoes, I like to look at the midsole as kind of the engine of the shoe, what really makes it go. And in the Streakfly, we have a full-length ZoomX midsole. Our most resilient foam gives the most energy back to runners, and it's also the most lightweight. And we looked at the Streakfly, that is a key component. We heard from runners as they were taking the Vaporfly and using it for shorter distances, or really looking for what were the best needs that they could have at the shorter distances. They wanted lightweight and a little bit more connection to the ground. I could name off many different athletes, but athletes like Jordan Hsay, even Elliott Kipchoge as he's coming down to shorter distances, Joshua Cheptegei racing in 5K, 10K races, Letesenbet Gide, really asking for something, hey, as I'm going out for the shorter races, I want something that disappears on my foot. I still get the magic of these like new shoes, but I want it just really lightweight and I want to have more connection so I can control the shoe at really dynamic paces and around tighter turns.
Now, we're seeing stack heights really become the hot topic on the market right now, especially in this super shoe space world. Racing shoes are getting higher and higher, and because you get those benefits of added protection, but with compounds like ZoomX, you're able to keep the shoes at an extremely light weight. But now with the Streakfly, you're getting those benefits of ZoomX, but in a lower profile package. Can you tell us about some of the challenges you maybe would have faced with creating a shoe at this lower profile, but with that full-length ZoomX compound?
Yeah, when we started out really working on the Streakfly, we had a sense that we were going lower profile, but we don't really start and put a specific number on and say that's what we're going to go for. This was an exciting project for us because we kind of felt like we were working with a handful of new tools for this type of shoe. When you look at the new ZoomX foam that hadn't really gone into a lower profile shoe before, and really we had at that point, a couple years of learnings from all of the Vaporfly, and then eventually like even Alphafly learnings, how athletes were responding to the new shoes. So we approached it as a blank canvas of how do we, not really target a number, but how do we target an athlete benefit? And we heard athletes telling us over and over of, I want more connection to ground. I want to get lower. So that was a challenge for us to kind of think differently with this new set of tools, bring it lower. That was obviously with the benefit of taking away weight, which was a huge ask of our athletes as well. But then it just becomes a balance of finding the right amount of that foam such that an athlete feels like they're getting the most benefit of the shoe, but without really bottoming out or without being unstable. All those things that we're trying to, balance to give the best tuned shoe, tune that engine for the specific use case. In this case, that was shorter distance road racing, as well as really a versatile training shoe for a lot of athletes.
Now, when we talk about ZoomX almost being the engine of the shoe, I think that's a really good kind of metaphor, but there's also another component to the shoe. We've got to talk about what's embedded into that ZoomX foam, and with a lot of these recent shoes, we've been seeing full-length carbon fiber plates, but it's a little bit different here with the Streakfly. We've got embedded into the midfoot a carbon shank, or at least what I think is a carbon shank. Can you tell us what this shank is all about? What is the shape? What is it made of? And why were the athletes asking for this over that traditional carbon plate we've seen in other shoes?
Yeah, so starting out on this model, we had a whole host of new tools to work with in this model. Really the plate, as well as the foam, as well as the upper, all those things have to come together for the specific needs that we're looking to provide for the athletes. As you mentioned, that plate aspect of the shoe, we looked at all sorts of different options. Obviously, we've had tons of success looking at full-length carbon plates and even partial length. And in this case, we netted out with a midfoot P-backs plate, and it doesn't really stretch the full length of the shoe, but it right centered in the middle, giving a good amount of torsional stiffness and stability, but really not too much that it's gonna cause instability around the turns. It really allows athletes to maximize the ZoomX right underneath their forefoot to get more energy return. That P-backs plate is perforated in specific ways to, again, take away the weight where it's not needed, but also find really the tuned right amount of stiffness and aggressiveness to help this shoe perform well.
And it's interesting that you chose not to go with carbon fiber, because I feel like right now on the market, everyone is talking about carbon fiber, carbon fiber. It's kind of that hot topic, but I think at the end of the day, really what it comes down to is being able to create that perfect amount of rigidity, and it's not always going to be the same for every shoe. And I think even with shoes like the Dragonfly, we don't see carbon in there, but it does create a very high level of performance. Was a little bit of inspiration for this shoe taken from the Dragonfly as well?
Certainly, we took inspiration and learnings from both sides. Like the Dragonfly has obviously been on a tear with athletes and what they're loving it for track racing, even training, and really that blend of curvature and stiffness, but again, that's a track shoe. And so we balance some of that feedback from the Dragonfly as well, what we've seen from the Vaporfly and the Alphafly. And this is really kind of a child of both of those. We're taking learnings from both sides. And really just what I'm most proud about the way our team works is every new challenge is not just taking what we did before and put it on something new. It's take all the learnings and really start from scratch with an open mind and go out and test all these different options that we think might work. But really, it's ultimately the voice of the athlete that comes through in terms of the direction that we go in.
So Elliott, taking a little bit closer look at the midsole, on this proto colorway in my hand, on the medial heel, we see this special number designation. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this means and why it got featured on this first colorway, the proto colorway?
Yeah, like you said, that's the proto colorway, and that's the first color we'll launch, and we'll have more colors coming in subsequent seasons. But this whole proto colorway, as well as that number on the medial midsole, is really just a nod to our process and prototyping and the testing that goes into it. And so that number specifically is kind of a shout out to a tester that was a part of our process, really gave us not necessarily like always the most positive, but we respect and we value our testers so much. Those that are going out and putting so many miles in the shoes, giving us the honest feedback that helps really push round after round to better shoes each time. And so that test number there is really a shout out to the number that athlete had, and really our prototype process in general, because it's so key to us. We could not make these sort of shoes without the athletes themselves, without those athletes willing to go out and try, the crazy things that we're coming up with. And that's how we end up with these finished shoes, is really standing on the shoulders of the miles that those athletes have run.
Now, moving on down to the outsole, I know the outsole maybe isn't always the most exciting part of the shoe, but it is a very critical part of the Streakfly. Can you tell us about the design? I know it does take some inspiration from other shoes like the Vaporfly and the Alphafly with that generative pattern. Can you tell us a little bit more about the outsole?
Yeah, so when you look at generative design, what that is it's taking athlete-informed data, a bunch of different runner foot strikes, and helping that to inform how we design the specific traction patterns. So you'll see the curvature of the lines, and those are really oriented so that you get the proper traction really at the most common foot strikes, as well as the proper traction at toe off. So they're angled in a way in which you're going to get the best traction at every component that you're in touch with the ground. The material there is a blown rubber outsole, and really that's just a really lightweight rubber. Again, knowing that the Streakfly is all about lightweight, disappearing on your foot, that's a key material for us to use to get traction, but also maintain the lightweight nature.
Yeah, there's always that kind of balance of creating the optimal traction, durability, lightweight, and I think specifically with this shoe, I've mentioned before that the Streak kind of was that perfect shoe for California cross country. Over the years, it kind of was adopted as the shoe for California cross country. Do you still think that this shoe is going to be able to handle a wide variety of surfaces? Obviously, when cross country gets pretty crazy, you're going to want to spike up, but how versatile do you feel like this outsole actually is?
Yeah, I think it's really versatile, and the reason I can say that is because we've had athletes tested on all those different surfaces. We've had athletes testing on the grass, on dirt, on road, and when you talk about California cross country, all of those things come together, and you're probably going to see all of them in the same race. And so versatility is really important, and I think just the lightweight nature. You're not sacrificing cushion for lightweight and performance in this case. And so that's really the blend that comes together, and the huge benefit that I think those California cross country athletes are going to benefit from on a bunch of different surfaces, as well as athletes training on the track or racing on the road.
Now, finishing this shoe off, we've got to talk about the upper. And when I take a look back at some of the old Nike Streak models, I always remember it being a very simple upper, a very lightweight, kind of an upper that just disappears on foot. Can you tell us how this shoe has kind of taken inspiration, but also kind of grown and evolved to be kind of that modern day 5K, 10K super shoe?
Yeah, I think when you look at the upper of the Streakfly, there's a couple of things that stand out. Like you mentioned, the simplicity but really lightweight nature. That's a really powerful thing to have in a shoe. Sometimes it's not always about making it more complicated. And so the visual aesthetic and the really performance of simplicity is great. But you also have some specific engineered areas where if you look at the forefoot of the shoe, similar to what we've looked at for the Vaporfly, a little bit added containment and specific engineering right around the forefoot. And that's really to keep the foot contained as you go around different turns, athletes running more aggressive paces, even some really fast paces in training around the track. So it's really the lightweight, breathability, and also containment of the upper. I don't think that's a component that I want to overlook, because we got athletes really running aggressive paces, but needing lightweight but containment.
Well, Elliott, I feel like every part of this shoe has been so well thought out, so well tested, and really the testing process has been happening for years now. Before we kind of wrap up the shoe, I want to hear a little bit more about the testing process. How many athletes were using this shoe, and what were some of the key things that you heard that the athletes were really liking with this shoe, and how it kind of became the final version that we have here today?
Yeah, Connor, I don't have a number on the number of athletes that have tested the shoe, but I do think over the last 2.5, 3 years, it's been one of our most tested shoes ever. Really high level athletes on the track, as well as road racing, as well as some, not elites or some sub-elite athletes, really athletes going out to race a variety of different distances and train. I think what you highlighted on before is the versatility of the shoe. We certainly believe and expect to see records on the road in 5K and 10K in this shoe. But I think what's been most exciting is seeing how a really broad range of athletes have started to work this in and see it as a really key component to their quiver of shoes. I think from athletes racing, marathons as their main focus, but still doing some of that shorter K repeat type workouts on the track or on the roads, to athletes that are more track athletes, and even some of the short sprinters that are doing workouts, during the fall season. We're going to see this. I expect to see the Streakfly as probably the most versatile shoe that's a key component to the quiver of really every athlete, and that really excels in that zone of, that short distance road racing.
Well, I'm glad you brought up kind of that wide spectrum of runners, because I talked with Donovan Brazier recently, and he kind of pointed to this 5K, 10K designation on the shoe, and he said, I'm not going to be running a 5K, 10K, but this shoe has been one of his favorite shoes he's tested. He's had it for a while now, and he said for 400-meter repeats, 800-meter repeats, this shoe has just been so fast, so smooth. It really has been kind of his perfect workout shoe. So I think that kind of just goes to show the range that this shoe is going to be used for.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting that, again, you're no longer trading off protection for speed and lightweight. That's one of the best things about the Streakfly is you're getting the cushion. You have the stack there, but really with all the materials and the design that we put into the shoe, you're going to get cushion and lightweight. You're going to get cushion and aggressive nature, so that you can go out for, like Donovan's workout, like you mentioned there, and run really fast 400s. You're going to see athletes just doing repeat Ks or miles in this shoe. That's really going to help benefit their training, and how that translates into an even better performance on race day as well. So we're really excited about the versatility of this one.
Well, Elliott, thank you for coming, telling us a little bit more about the Streakfly, kind of getting that behind the scenes look that you don't normally hear with some of this really unique Nike racing product. I'm extremely excited to start using it for some workouts, for some races. As more of a 5K, 10K runner, I feel like this shoe is going to fit perfectly in my lineup. And for people at home that really want to try this shoe for themselves, good news is it is finally here at Running Warehouse. Today, the Proto colorway will launch, but we'll see even more colorways coming over the following months. If you're looking to get a pair for yourself, you can find it here at Running Warehouse.